Right Lieutenant Allen runs the RAF section of the Corps. How large is the section at the moment?
At the moment we've got 47 cadets.
And what sort of activities does the section do?
Well, there are a lot of activities. The basic training consists of orienteering, map reading, camping, weapon training and shooting. A certain amount of drill, not very much, and an emphasis on smartness, of course. But the main attractions are flying and gliding.
How many gliders do you have, in fact?
Gliders, well, we've got one of our own, a primary glider, which is based at West Malling, but we use the gliders at West Malling and the gliders at Maidstone for our own training. Perhaps while I'm talking about flying, I ought to mention the Flying Scholarship Scheme. Any cadet is able to enter this, and if successful, he receives 28 days of free instruction. When he has finished this 28 days, he has then gone solo, and with a few hours at his own expense, he then gets his private pilot's license.
I asked Major Cayley if Inspection Day this year was a success.
Undoubtedly, I think, yes. Everyone seemed to enjoy themselves.
And who was the inspecting officer this year?
Captain Darling, who is a retired naval officer. He is an old Maidstonian. He was at the school, I believe, 1929 to 1937. And when he left, I saw from his record card in the school office, he was put down as a probable entrant to the RAF.
What is the size of the Army section at the moment?
It's 90.
And what were they doing on Inspection Day?
They were engaged in a scheme at Merryworth Woods, which we described as winkling out guerrillas.
Whilst we look at these shops at the inside of the school, Major Cayley tells us something of the history of the school's CCF, which I understand has been in existence for numerous years now.
It was in fact originally formed in 1906 as the Officers' Training Corps, but it's undergone a number of changes of name since then. The first one came in 1942 when it became the Junior Training Corps, and again in 1948 when it became the present CCF. But when I say that, I'm merely talking about the Army side of it, because the Navy didn't come into existence until 1968. And previously the Air Training Corps, as it was then, was formed in 1940, I believe as a result of the loss of young pilots in the Battle of Britain. And that was amalgamated with the Army section to become the CCF, as I said, in 1948.
What is the size of the cadet force at the moment?
If I say 200, it's an approximate round figure. It's slightly under 200 at the moment.
Mr. Holyman how much the school has changed during his 44 years here as a master.
Well, when I was first up at the new school, and I was rather more than a year a master here before we came up to the new school, when we came up, the school was built for 400 boys, and when we came up, there were just over 400. The buildings were just a single quad. The one we have is the main quad, and the building and the rooms used were those used just round the quad itself.
And now we've got over 900 people. And
over 900, and heaven alone knows what in the way of scattered buildings.
And I suppose teaching methods have changed a great deal as well.
Yes, quite a good deal. We had nothing at all that approaches what you would now call project methods. The lesson was in the form, really, of a certain amount of information which the master would impart, a certain amount of exercises and using it, perhaps, in a sort of way.
And you had to teach numerous subjects since you've been here?
I have taught quite a lot of subjects, but when I was first at the grammar school here, it was policy that for people to teach more than one subject. And the master in charge of English, Mr. Lai, always taught a French form as well. The master in charge of history, Mr. Phillips, always taught an English form. It was quite deliberate policy for people to do something other than the subject in which they were principally qualified.
And do you think the increased size of the school, the increased number of staff, do you think they're all changes for the better, the new methods?
Well, I'm not really quite sure about that. I would not say they're really changes for the better. It seems to me that the changes perhaps are necessary, they've been inevitable, but they have not, I think, been important. The really important thing in education, as I see it, is to come in contact with a good mind. And I think that I was prepared for the world, even the world as it is today, as well by my school education, as people today are by the very, very much more elaborate education they're given. It seems to me it's the question of the process of thinking which is important. And it seems to me in the old days the process of thinking was just as well taught as it is today. In fact, I think perhaps rather better, because there was a less wide proliferation of interest in subjects, and therefore what was done better. In the same way that Bunyan was an educated man on one book, the Bible.
Mr. Stewart looks after the athletics, the sports in the school, and I understand the standard of athletics and sport is very high. Is this right, Mr. Stewart?
Well, it is very high, comparable to other schools of our standing in the county.
And
in the rugby, we had a most successful season. In fact, we were hailed by the Telegraph as being the champion school of Kent.
Really? That's
Yes.
really good. And what about
In the athletics, well, we just had quite a successful season and still are. 2 Nursey and Judge in the All England Championships.
Mr. Morgan has a lot to do with the athletics in the school, and I understand that the standard of athletics is quite high. Is this true, Mr. Morgan?
Yes, we've had quite a successful year this year. We won both the intermediate and junior sections in the Maidstone Championships for the first time that I can remember since I've been here, which is really quite a good achievement. We won both by a very big margin, actually.
And is this due to some of the outstanding athletes we've got in the school?
Well, it's not really. In fact, because 2 of our 3 outstanding athletes are in the senior age group and they don't even come into it. So really it's a sign, I think a very encouraging sign of considerable depth in the athletics.